has about 300 million internet users, and this number is projected to surpass 500 million by 2018. What about mobile connections? We have touched almost the 1 billion mark. Here lies the clue for our Prime Minister, who is keen on achieving financial inclusion targets. What can really enable his government to do this fast is the m-commerce option, which has evidently emerged as the best solution to the problem of financial exclusion. Then comes a global concern about taxing the digital space. All multilateral bodies like OECD and UN appear to be struggling to find a solution to this e-trouble. Even as OECD's base erosion and profit shifting project continues to lag behind the time schedule announced earlier, some of the economies have begun to take unilateral legislative measures to tax e-commerce. Divergent profit tax is the United Kingdom's response to such a challenge. The problem is not less serious in India. Even as our income tax authorities continue to tug their hair over the question how to solve the PE mystery and bring to tax the India-sourced income of e-commerce companies. But the immediate and greatest trouble has come from state VAT authorities who have been making a case for VAT evasion. But the larger question is, when marketplace providers like Amazon, Flipkart and Snapdeal are not selling the goods, only enabling e-sellers to sell their goods, who is liable to pay VAT? No doubt, tax has to be paid if there is a sale. But who is a mystery entity so far? To understand the intricacies of these issues, let's go to our domain experts.
Hello and welcome back to Simply inTAXicating episode 2 on e-trouble at the rate e-commerce. In this episode, I will explore from my panelist whether it makes more policy sense to pursue m-commerce for quicker financial inclusion in view of the fact that mobile connections are growing faster than broadband. I will also touch other relevant issues like what needs to be done to protect consumers from online frauds and also data protection, and most importantly, the taxation issues. How to tax goods being traded online and even services is a major global concern for all economies. In India, apart from income tax concerns, VAT has emerged as a serious trouble for all mega marketplace providers. In the last couple of weeks, many state VAT authorities have come out with certain instructions for the marketplace providers to furnish details of e-sellers and also transactions done over a period of time. So let us go to our panelists to find out about the growing list of e-troubles for e-commerce. We'll continue with the debate, and we were chatting with Mr. Subramanian, who was going to talk about the m-commerce aspect of it. So yeah, please tell us more a little bit.
See, we did talk about what's going to be the policy push. Is it going to be that yes, I want to really encourage e-commerce? If that is the case, like you said, out of the 4 pillars, m-commerce, yes, we perhaps have now started looking at mobile payments as it is. But look at the other one, the marketplace. Is it already there? Can I, let us say, make a sale or place an order on the mobile? Perhaps it's still kind of early. In the sense, yes, we have still not come to that kind of a thing. What is it that the e-commerce players are going to do? And second part of it is the infrastructure, which is going to be common whether it is m-commerce or e-commerce. I don't see any problem in it in terms of the supply chain. The fourth aspect is the regulatory aspect. I suppose m-commerce again has regulatory issues which are still not getting addressed. So if that is the case, if you really want to push m-commerce, there are 2 major parts of this, this e-commerce, space in terms of the 2 pillars where I think we really need to push further and actually find solutions. So that is where I think we need to see it. And if it has to reach the common man, so-called, who actually works more with the mobile than with, the internet and broadband connectivity, we really need to address these issues. So that's something which I think is left open for the policy elites, so-called.
So since we are talking about the common man, this brings us to a very vital question that how exactly a common man's interest, being a consumer, the consumer protection, what are the new changes which e-commerce is going to trigger in terms of amendment, in terms of insertion of new provisions, and something maybe it needs to be completely revamped and overhauled? What is the experience in developed economies, for instance?
I can tell you about my own experiences with online fraud, which have always been interesting to me. Firstly, I think that the legislation takes time to catch up because most of the legislation is written without e-commerce and m-commerce in mind. So it took our government a long time to catch up. It took the US government a long time to catch up, and I'm sure India will have to draft some new legislation. But I can tell you I've been a victim of fraud many times online. I started off once using eBay. eBay was probably the first buying platform I used online, and I used it many times with no problems. And one day I bought something from a vendor in Malaysia, which the price looked too good to be true, and of course it was. So after I'd paid, I suddenly, the goods hadn't arrived after a few weeks, and I started looking online, and there were lots of people saying, don't use this vendor, it's a fraud, it's a scam. So I lost my money. It was only a small amount of money, but I learnt the lesson. So in that case, you look at partners like PayPal who've started to guarantee transactions in eBay, for example. And eBay purchased PayPal so that they now have control of the payment system. If you buy something on PayPal using your PayPal account and you're defrauded, they will refund your money in a lot of cases up to certain limits and certain rules. So that was a good experience for me. Then, of course, everyone has had their credit card used fraudulently overseas. I remember one day traveling and used my credit card. Then my bank called me and said, you're not in Singapore, are you? I said, no. And they said, oh, somebody's buying something in Singapore. It's not you. I said, no. So our banks have now taken on the initiative to protect the consumers, to create the systems that track these kind of frauds. I think the other thing that the legislation is doing is about data privacy. Some of the new payment gateways don't actually store your credit card details. They have a very sophisticated way of protecting your details. And this is only because we've learnt from our bad experiences. So again, I think India is lucky that it's coming in late into the market. It can take advantage of all these innovations.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where the banks in India have taken a very good step with this OTP.
OTP is a good service. Yeah.
One-time password, and that's a second level verification, which I think definitely has reduced fraud a lot online.
But more needs to be done.
Yes, more needs to be done. But
Absolutely.
As of now, I think that was a good initiative.
No, in terms of the consumer protection, one is the respect to the payment. That is the finance flows, right? I mean, somebody stealing identity from the point of view of this. Assuming I get some goods and the goods are found to be defective, or like I get a service or whatever it is a substandard. Now, who do I really catch? Is it the platform provider? I have a serious problem because the platform provider will say, yes, I have provided you the platform, go and catch the seller. Right. And I don't know where the seller is located. Yes. So it's going to be a real problem. Now, the question is, what is it that, that risk hedging that the e-commerce service provider is going to provide? Is he going to give me some kind of hedging where he says, yes, if you do find it, of course, I think many of them are providing that in case you do find it, I'll take it back, within some limited period. That's one thing they do provide. But in terms of, substandard products, etc., like that clear mechanism which has to be passed on.
That brings to me another very important aspect of e-commerce, that as a consumer, if I happen to be in hinterland in some small village, and I feel that I have been cheated, defective goods, for instance, and I want to sue the company, where should I go?
If you're dealing with an international company that's behind the company you're dealing with in India, can you go overseas and take legal action overseas if it was a large amount of money?
In the non-inventory based model, Flipkart is openly declaring that these goods don't belong to me. I'm not the owner, manufacturer, or whatever of these goods. I'm not even the one who's warehousing them. The warehousing is with these companies. Right. The products belong to that particular company. Now, at the time of taking delivery, I have to see the invoice and the conditions on the reverse. Now, consumers have to be educated, more awareness has to be created. But at the end of the day, I don't think the market space model allows the consumer who's been taken for a ride to sue them.
I think what it comes down to is trust. The only way that e-commerce and mobile commerce works is trust. It doesn't matter whether it's business to business or business to consumer or consumer to consumer. If the trust is broken, then that retailer, that platform will be out of business. Right. And it may be in their interest to take on that reputational support.
But that happens in the long run. So far as the individual is concerned.
Explain another thing here
I'm a
with
victim.
regard to trust. Some of the complaints which came to us and we looked into, the manufacturer, without naming him, has a supply chain. He has a first tier distributor with whom he has an agreement, quality, prices, etc. The first tier distributor has in turn another agreement with a second tier distributor. The second tier distributor doesn't have an agreement with the original manufacturer. Now the second tier distributor sells goods to Brett, Siva, Shailendra and Sunil Kumar, and you, and we are what? We could be in Lajpat Nagar, we could be in a wholesale area, wherever. Right. We picked up 4 from him, 5 for there. When the quality turns out to be defective, the product doesn't work, whom do I go to? What did these people say? Those who came to us. They said, my brand reputation or my brand name suffers, but this product is being advertised by the portals. The market space model permits anybody to. And when you go there, you find that the person whose prices are being mentioned, his company's name is not being disclosed on the website.
Absolutely. That brings it to a very important, amendment which Government of India is thinking in terms of bringing in the Consumer Protection Act, is to make it a territory-free kind of scenario for online buyers. Irrespective of where you are, you can file the suit wherever you are. Whether the manufacturer or the platform is hosted in India and abroad, you can file, and they are also going to give, once the amendment is notified, the option of class suit, which happens in case of developed economies.
But that will get the manufacturers very worried, like to your point.
And the manufacturer says,
I'm not
tell
liable.
Me whether you went and bought this product from my distributor.
Correct.
My appointed non-exclusive distributor. Yes. Show me the invoice. If not.
So that is where this, the exclusive agreement, which most of this B2B and B2C platform providers are perhaps getting into with the manufacturers. Some of them exclusive agreement. And this is whether this liability will work there in case somebody has an agreement with the manufacturers.
Yeah, and this is what I meant about the barrier to entry for somebody with a grey market import is very low because the platform exists. They will take the business from anyone they can get it.
So apart from that, we will go quickly to the data protection side and cyber crime aspect of e-commerce. Quickly, we will touch this. We will move to taxation because we have very limited time. So we will move quickly to this. So this data protection side, maybe you would like to.
There's one issue which many of our clients have also been kind of concerned about is many of the regulatory agencies, for example, want to get the data at the line level, which is at the kind of a transaction level data. Now, one issue which keeps on coming up as far as they are concerned is, I'm very sensitive about the data protection. How secure is this data? Is it that it's going to fall into the wrong hands? Is it possible that any of these regulatory agencies will be able to kind of pass it on to others? And the issue again comes down to is, yes, I have the RTI. Can somebody claim an RTI claim and get this data from the regulatory agencies? So that's a next level. While RTI does provide for a third party kind of a claim where the third party has to be notified, it also has a proviso which says that yes, if it is in public interest, the data has to be disclosed. Right. It has got to be disclosed. Second is also in terms of enforcement. Many of these enforcement agencies or the regulatory agencies may not necessarily have the mechanism to protect the data. So this is one issue which definitely is going to arise as far as data protection is concerned.
Right. So, of course, there are various other aspects related to data protection. We don't have the time to go deeper into it. We will go to the cyber attack, which, of course, Mr. Stevens shared with us. Maybe you would like to throw more in terms of preparation, whether there should be a global body, for instance, or maybe individual countries. And particularly the problem would be little more serious and aggravated in terms of developing countries, where ICT infrastructure is, at a very nascent stage. Exactly. And, a lot of, the firewalls, and that kind of safeguard architecture is required, which is perhaps not in place.
Yeah. There are standards, and a lot of the financial institutions worldwide have certain standards about how they store data, how it is protected, how it is secured. But there is always some criminal out there who would like to gain access to the information, and they have very sophisticated IT departments themselves, and some of the European countries now and some of the larger Asian countries, I won't name them, are also now being held responsible for some of the largest cyber attacks in the world. And they're not always limited to trying to find credit cards. They want to have identity fraud. They want to access government information. So I think every country has its own policies about protecting data. In Australia, we try to personalized data. So any data that's stored on your server can't be linked back to an individual person if possible. So you might store a credit card number, but you might not store the name of the person in the same area, so that if somebody does find a credit card number, all they've got is a number. They're not able to use it effectively. Or if you store the name, you make sure it's not the date of birth or the passport number or the ID number is stored in the same area. So there are strategies to do it, but it really needs to be almost a government policy decision about what can be stored, how it can be stored, how it has to be protected, and who's responsible if somebody does hack into it.
Right, absolutely. So cyber attack is the biggest threat which the e-commerce, the virtual space faces today. That brings us to the most important, the bone of contention, which the e-commerce players are facing in India today, and which is perhaps going to retard their growth in the coming years if this issue is not quickly addressed by Government of India, and that is the issue of taxation. So maybe, sir, I will start with you. You would like to throw, particularly from the direct tax side, particularly the issue of PE, for instance.
PE is not creating such a big problem, but PE simply is a concept which comes from the double taxation avoidance agreements, which define PE in various ways, where there is a permanent establishment for doing business or a fixed place of doing business in a country, and the country which is the host country, where the PE is located, any business is generated, any revenues are generated, and the profit which is attributable to that country, the host country, is taxed. Now, if you have a computer or a server, rather, which is located in the country, and revenue is generated, and there's some commercial activity, then the revenue could be taxed depending on the conditions of PE being satisfied, given that each DTAA agreement has its own definition, and there are certain elements to be looked into to see whether they are met. In that case, there could be revenue implications and tax implications. But the more contentious area in India, in the e-commerce space of late, especially in the retail segment, where foreign investment is coming in, is regarding VAT. That revolves around the payment of state VAT. And one or two states have taken a lead in issuing notices to these companies which have foreign direct investment. And according to them, they should be paying the tax rather than the actual supplier or the third party vendor. Now, they say that if you have taken a warehouse, the warehouse stores goods, and the goods are sold from that warehouse or removed or cleared from that goods upon a sale, you have triggered the sale.
What is happening? Is it the case that if I am a seller and I am selling my goods through, some e-platform like Flipkart is providing, when I am selling it, does it mean that I am not paying VAT?
Okay. See, let's look at what is it that the e-service providers are providing. One is, again, we come back to that. One is an online platform, and then they also in a kind of an inventory based model. I'm also having some kind of a warehouse or a fulfillment center, whatever you call that. Some where the goods are actually stored by the seller for the purposes of the sale. Okay. Third party is that from that particular warehouse, the goods are going to be picked up, going to be delivered through some courier agency or their own agency, depending on what it is. Then it reaches. Now, fourth leg to it is somebody is going to collect the money. Either it is collected online or it is going to be in the form of a cash on delivery. Now, then last item would be that if somebody rejects the goods, it's going to be picked up, right? How are the goods going to be treated, right? It's going to be that, the goods are damaged or whatever it is. How is it going to be treated? It's going to be just returned to the seller or something else is going to be done. This is one. So, if I unbundle this entire thing into this kind of a transaction, now the question comes is, what is it that each of these you might say entities are doing? If I am providing a marketplace, like you look at it, any of these weekly markets which are held, people do come, they come, sell, go. I mean, the argument would be that yes, while it is being sold on my platform, I am not the seller because somebody else is coming and selling. Yes. So now, what is my role vis-a-vis the seller, which somebody can claim I am the agent of the seller? So this is a question which is actually getting raised in many of these, the state, by the state VAT departments.
And one, to supplement what you're saying, what they're picking up as a clause is that you are a commission agent, you are acting as a commission agent, even if you say this inventory is not your own inventory. You're playing the role because there are similar operations performed on the agricultural side, and the State Commercial Department of Karnataka has gone to great lengths to speak to the press to say that we are looking for clarification from them. We are examining their model, and a certain degree of caution has come in, I think, after the minister advised them to look into the details, the facts of the operations, and then see the replies and responses. The problem was many of these companies were not coming back with a reply. Now apparently the replies are coming after an extended time limit has been given. So let's see what comes up.
Yeah, if you see it, I can be an agent for anything. If I'm carrying goods for somebody else, I'm an agent in some sense because I'm carrying his goods. But the question is, if you really look at in terms of Karnataka, since you mentioned it, Karnataka, I think Section 8 has a provision which says if I'm a selling agent, I'm liable to pay the sales tax. Now, am I a selling agent? I might be an agent for any other purposes, but am I a selling agent? That's a question, right? By kind of setting up a marketplace, by kind of providing a warehousing facility, because this could be two different entities. Let's be clear. Again, it's not that it's the same entity. So these entities are different. They have arrangements with the seller. Now, which of this entity, if at all, is going to be called as a selling agent? I could always argue, no, I'm just allowing you to come on my platform. I'm not selling on your behalf. Therefore, I'm not a selling agent. I mean, whatever it is. Second is, I'm warehousing. Yes, I'm holding your goods. And to that extent, yes, I'm a bailee, like I'm holding your goods. But that does not necessarily make me a selling agent for you. So these are the kind of arguments which actually, I suppose, would really go on in this. I mean, naturally, taxation being a very, very...
These arguments are going on. NASSCOM has come into the fray. Other associations have come into the fray. And I think in drafting or replying those from the companies, these are the arguments that are being taken. But the other point is another risk. It is said that if they are upheld by the state tax authority as the selling agent, overruling all the arguments that Siva has mentioned so clearly and in detail, then the next step would be, would the central government then regard this market space model also, saying that since you're a seller of goods and you are an FDI, a foreign owned company, well, in that case, have you violated the policy under the FDI policy, and you're chargeable under FEMA.
Right.
Now, some of the experts are saying that if one happens, the other is bound to follow.
I just want to actually put that argument back and say, since I am not a selling agent, I am not doing any sale, therefore I am not doing a multi-brand retail. I am not a multi-brand retailer.
No, this is
therefore, you may even go to the extent of saying, I am not I am not bound by this,
this
FTA
is where
regulations.
lawyers come in and state governments come
But so my fear is, what is happening? Is it that the VAT authorities are not able to get VAT on the goods which are being actually delivered to the consumers? What is happening, sir? In the whole process, the dispute is what is the point of sale?
Problem is that seller is a faceless entity as far as the state VAT department is concerned. He could be sitting in Delhi selling in Karnataka. The goods may move to Karnataka. Or the seller might have some location in Karnataka itself selling the goods, but he is selling it on the online platform. If he has got a store somewhere, of course, it could, because both the facilities are there. One is where you have a warehousing model, where I only provide you a platform. The seller sells from his own location, right? He has a store, storing place, a warehouse of his own, and he sells the goods. Now, if that is the case, the question comes is, how does the VAT authority catch him? This is the real concern of the VAT authority. This is what I understand.
Correct, absolutely.
If this is the situation, then the question is that he becomes faceless as far as the VAT authority is concerned. Therefore, they say, why should I go and catch? If I got 10,000, sellers on your platform, why should I go and catch all the 10,000 fellows?
Right. So
you become my nodal point. You pay the tax. Any case, you are collecting the money on their behalf.
Right.
Therefore, it is very easy for you to make the payment.
Absolutely.
So the question comes is, yes, it may be, but the point is the tax is only on the transaction which is sale. So therefore, unless there is a sale taking place in the hands of the e-commerce service provider, it is very difficult to say that no, you will become my this, and he is not a selling agent. He is not actually involved in the sale. So that is the contention which is going on.
No, but who collects the cash? If I am the consumer, I am paying. One fellow coming and knocking at my door.
He takes the cash.
He takes the cash. Who is this gentleman? Is he not from that same platform?
He is from the platform. He is from the platform.
Then you are collecting the cash.
These are different.
I don't think so.
That's again, the courier collects the cash, but he may deposit it in the account of the particular, e-commerce service provider.
But who hired the courier fellow? Who is into agreement with the courier fellow?
It depends on logistics. The entity which is performing the
logistics.
logistics.
The entity which is providing the platform,
Logistics.
they are getting
delivery.
paid.
No. There are different entities. Again, that's what we have to really come to the business.
It's not Snapdeal. It's
not necessarily then.
Okay. So
the
the multiple
seller
layers being
this.
created
Multiple
again.
layers
So that is where we can't blame the policymakers. They
Again,
have to come
I just
out
want
and
to
put
say,
the onus.
even in terms of
But the good thing, at least with an e-commerce platform, you have a record of the transaction. So in the West, there was such a black economy with cash transactions,
Right.
and we were missing out on our taxes anyway. At least with an e-commerce platform, you've got some record that, yes, it might take a complex legal argument to settle this and who's going to pay it, but you have a record and the record's there forever. That is the one benefit that the West is finding about e-commerce. Everything is recorded, so there's less ability of people to avoid tax. Having said that, some of the company structures that have been set up to take advantage of e-commerce in the West are definitely moving profits into less taxable areas. And, you know, all of the global economies, the UK, Ireland, Australia, the US are all saying, yes, it's not fair, but nobody's doing anything about it yet. They're all, you know, saying it's your problem. No, it's your problem. No. So in the US, they've solved that by taxing based on the state of the buyer.
Yeah, that is destination-based.
The consumption.
Absolutely.
So that's what they're saying. Once
Yes.
GST comes in,
Yeah.
and GST is based on the principle of consumption or destination
Absolutely.
tax, that's when this problem will be taken care of.
Yeah. In fact, I find so the 3 days back, the daily VAT authorities have come out with this related to, they are asking all e-commerce players to come and file quarterly return and give details. What kind of business you have done, how many goods have been really returned, for instance, as a defective case, etc., etc. Let us see what they are going to come out with.
Again, if you really look at it, some of the states have at this stage, instead of taking that other approach that you are my agent, you know, therefore pay, that's one approach which they are taking. But, you know, pending maybe, you know, some larger issues to be settled, they are also taking this approach that at least give me information at this stage.
Right.
Now, give me information, because as far as the states are concerned, the goods which are originating, as on date, we have a originating, the originating state takes the tax, whether it is a VAT or CST.
Right.
Now, the question comes is of, you know, the originating state, whatever is, a dealer, the goods are moving from the state to any other state. That's one thing where they want information about, if you really see that. Second thing is that the goods are coming into the state. Now, of course, the argument could be that, if goods are coming into the state, that VAT department never had a right to collect tax on that. But there, the only issue which would come is, if the seller is not at all known, the argument could always be that I don't know who's the seller. Now, who gets the tax? Because no other state ever got the tax. So, this could be an argument. But essentially, it comes down to doing some due diligence on the part of the e-commerce service provider.
On this note, we would like to conclude this debate. Before I talk about the major takeaways from this debate, let me thank all my 4 panelists for making it very, very interesting and stimulating, and bringing various kinds of issues and flagging some of the issues, if not finding a solution. Of course, it is left to the policymakers to find a solution. So far as India is concerned, the e-commerce has a very, very bright future. It has a lot of space to grow and expand. It has the potential to provide some sort of opportunities to SMEs. If we look at financial inclusion part, the mobile m-commerce, for instance, has been branded worldwide now as one instrument which militates and countervails the forces of financial exclusion. So perhaps India should, again, the Prime Minister should look at this feature. India has almost touched 1 billion mark. This will help India's, and Government of India and our financial institutions to reach out to every nook and corner of the village of this country. And looking at the FDI side, that is one highly avoidable controversy. Perhaps it's undisputed fact that India needs FDI. It's a again very important fact that we need to promote e-commerce. The issue of the inventory model versus marketplace model, whatever it is, both the models should be left to the market to promote each other. Government of India should provide a very conducive policy environment so that FDI comes into the picture. It does what normally it has done across the world in all economies and all developing countries. It has spurred the business. It has generated more income, more taxes for the state government or maybe the central government in case of India, in case of federal structure. When you look at the employment generation, the job creation, for instance, e-payment itself generates a lot of employment, the logistics sector, for instance, then inventory model, warehousing, for instance, all these areas are going to take care of the job creation part. If the offline retailers have the fear that they are going to lose, a lot of unskilled labor is going to lose jobs. That may not be the case. And then ultimately it's a technology. Can Government of India and through the policy instrument, any industry's growth can be stopped or hampered? Perhaps it can be delayed, but it cannot be stopped totally. Keeping in mind all this, India should go for a long-term perhaps e-commerce promotion strategy, where India should also look at the global level, the legal harmonization side, protecting the interests of the consumers, protecting the interests of the people who are into the business of doing business, and also many other intermediate agencies which are into this segment, and perhaps fix the liability, look at the cobweb of the unclarity which prevails there. They can be taken care of by the policymakers by amending a few laws, by amending a few policies, and perhaps providing a very, very friendly regulatory system in place. Thanking you all for watching TIOL.